Hey guys, Craig with Reflections Exterior Services out of Salisbury, Maryland. What's this video about? Well, there you go. The smart bypass. Most of you guys are running downstream injectors. Remote systems are pretty much kind of the standard anymore. Save those steps. What I'm showing you is just a thought, an idea. Is it overkill? Probably, but I like the peace of mind. What am I talking about? Let me get right to the point. Currently on my setup, I have two Midwest washing equipment downstream remotes. I did opt to have the meter for soap, so I can turn soap on and off. Sometimes you don't want to use surfactant, and I do have a dedicated tank specifically for soap. So that's all good and fine, but it's your standard T-Jet remote system that comes around and goes into my ports down here for the downstream injector. The problem, as you know, with most of these is that when you're not running soap and you turn it off, you're running water through the whole system. Now you're running water through the downstream injector, which, by the way, I absolutely love. I've gotten blowback for this sometimes, but so let me show you. This downstream injector right here, that's a 1.8 stainless steel downstream injector with the high flow check valve. No ball and spring inside of it. Same thing here. I've had those injectors for 2 years. And the reason why is because every time I push that button, I'm running water through my downstream injector like crazy. Obviously, the problem with that is that I'm killing my flow. And that part I do hate, not gonna lie. It does kill the flow, especially on a 5 and an 8. You don't feel it as much on a 4. I think just because the 4 is already kind of weak. But you definitely feel the difference on the 5, 5.5, and 8. So, instead of, some guys are like, well, just go ahead and, put your Flow Pro or your Smart Bypass on and just negate the downstream injector entirely. The problem with that is that you still have to rinse out the injector primarily at the end of every job. And of course you can do that with a 3-way valve. The problem is that, let's face it, when it's crazy, middle of May, pulling your hair out, am I going to remember to do that every single time? Not necessarily. And some guys are like, well, what's the big deal? Downstream injectors, what? For the stainless steel ones, you can spend a little bit of money. But even at the end of the day, still, okay, 40, 50 bucks for a downstream injector. Keep them on the truck, swap it out as you need it. I personally do not want to be in the middle of a job and find out that I'm not pulling soap. There's nothing worse than getting halfway through something and being like, what's going on? You're constantly checking, to smell on your hands. Is it pulling bleach? Is it not pulling bleach? Is the downstream injector not working? So what I'm doing, as the beginning of the video showed, is I am installing two, that's right, we're a 2-man operation. 2 smart bypasses are going to go right here next to each other. I'm going to mount my boxes, for your receiver right here. One there, one here. I'll figure out a way to mess with the wiring and all that jazz. And then, yes, I'm going to have 2 remotes. I'm going to have a remote for the Midwest washing equipment. I'm going to have a remote for the smart bypass. I know there's the all-in-one. I already know about those, the red all-in-one remotes. This is just to get me through this system. I think ultimately I would have that kind of setup. This is just to get me through this upcoming season. I'm going to be probably hitting the reset button on a lot of this. But I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. You can have the best of both worlds. The Smart Bypass, I think, is really economical. It's really smartly put together. John Hall really puts out a really good product. I've used it on several of my builds that I've done recently, and works great. So highly recommend that. And so the idea is that when I'm washing, I'm going to still do the same process. I'm going to use my Midwest Downstream. I'm going to turn my soap on. I'm going to make sure my ball valves are off. So I'm pulling soap through my Downstream injector. As soon as I'm done soaping that one side of the house, I'm going to switch my Downstream injector off, my Midwest washing equipment off. So that'll be no more flashing lights. I'm now pulling water. I'm rinsing out my Downstream injector. And I will do that for probably a good 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds. And just make sure that that is nice and flushed out. And then the beautiful part is, boop, hit that button. That opens up remotely. And now I got my full flow. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds in the sense that I'm able to flush my injector and get full flow, all without having to come back to the truck. Yes, that does mean I'm going to have two remotes. Is that a big deal? I don't really think so, because if my memory serves correct, you're talking about a remote that's this size. That's for the Midwest washing equipment. And then the ones that come with the Smart Bypass right here. So nice and easy to identify which one you're using. And they are literally, I mean, what, you're talking that big? Stick it in one pouch. Boop, boop. So that's what I'm doing, guys. Just a thought on being able to rinse out your system. It's key. I'm all about, like, obviously efficiency, but also making sure that you maintain your equipment. Like I said, I've had those same injectors for 2 years. Is it time for me to replace them? I don't know. They're still working. So until they tell me otherwise, I think I'm going to keep using them because they're pulling soap and they're doing great. So I just wanted to throw that idea out to you guys. Again, constantly learning. I love to learn from other people. I'm not even saying this is the best way to do it. I'm just showing you what I'm doing with my system, and maybe it's a thought you've had. Maybe you've done this already. Drop me a comment, yay, nay, and the reason why. If it's not a good idea, I'd love to hear why. I'm not here to argue, but I am here to learn. And so let's talk. Thanks so much for watching. Please smash the like, subscribe channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.